Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel, The Quiet Stories of Life, where I'm reading extracts from my book of the same name, which are a lot of them, about 90% true, a lot to do with my travels and things like that. Today I want to read you two shorts. This book actually has like I think 41 stories if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. The first one is My Favorite Walk, page 201. It's basically stepping through my past and what I used to see through my father's eyes. I hope you enjoy. My favorite walk is a narrow cement path, only 50 steps long, and I've walked it so often it knows me intimately. It is a path steeped with history, a time walk that runs parallel to the clothesline down the centre of our back garden to abruptly end at the two garden sheds. My beautiful father built this path over the course of years by pouring cement over a foundation of ashes from the parlour fire. Father was always practical and an ingenious sort. The clothesline, for example, he constructed from signal cable and water pipes borrowed from the railway company, which consumed his entire working life. It's so strong you could lynch politicians from it and the poles would hardly sag. Dad built the clothesline to last. The damn thing will see us all in the ground, I'm sure. The path's beauty is not in its appearance. Each step jettisons me back till we are in a time period of 1956, the birth of Marion Park Housing Estate. 284 solid brick pebble-dash wall houses built in blocks of 4 with little imagination and even less flair. Government houses for poor people, ever so practical and simple. In the now of 1956, it is known simply as Stafford's Field, and much to the delight of us children, there was always a rowdy horse in that field, one who disputed or shortcut to school. It was a horse, I should add, who would accept no sugar for a bribe and would befriend no person except Mr. Stafford. Like his horse, Stafford was an odd sort, who grunted rather than spoke, always wore dirty Wellington boots, and carried a venomous blackthorn stick in his hand. We were told that he was formerly a milkman, and his ungrateful horse had pulled the cart. Certainly as a child I can never remember that field without a horse. But time passed. The horse vanished. Stafford vanished. And a property developer bought the field, and pebble-dash houses like our own were erected in the field, and the field vanished forever. Let me describe the path as it is now in 2003. I pick a perfect day in early spring. The sun is shining, there is a gentle breeze, and the birds' shadows flutter across the manicured lawn, carefully tended by my mother. Over the years, most residents have walled in their gardens with rows of 6 by 9 inch concrete blocks. The walls are not plastered, too expensive, and doubtful if they ever will be plastered. Neatly running rows of 6 by 9s like a fortress wall of a castle divide our gardens. In their quest for privacy, we have developed the unsociable habit of caging ourselves in and others out. Before the 1960s, still without walls or fences, Father used to grow vegetables in the garden. I remember especially that he was tremendously proud of his first attempt at growing peas. One Sunday morning, immediately after Mass, we got the red basin from the kitchen and knelt on the soft clay and plucked every single pod for the dinner table. All agreed they were beautiful and we must plant more. But then growing vegetables became unfashionable. So primitive. It's only for village people, the neighbours said. We are town people after all. And so we complied and ended up with a nice lawn where Father indulged his passion for golf and used it as a driving range to wallop imaginary balls high up into the sky. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. His golf stick would thrash through the air, sending the dozen cats scurrying from the roof sheds. Later, with 3 growing kids and a father prone to the collection of anything envisaged to have a potential use, we invested in 2 pre-built lattice sheds. Both were brown in colour and their timber rough to the touch. The sheds were placed side by side at the foot of the garden to ensure the sunlight still reached the kitchen window and my mother's face. The path now ran no further than the sheds and was blocked behind the sheds by our neighbour's wall, and beyond those neighbour's wall by the new houses in Stafford's Field. We could no longer see Stafford's house. It was hidden and later burnt to the ground by vandals or insurance fraudsters. But I remember it. It still comes clearer with each step along the path. A fine Tudor-styled house with leaded bay windows. The eaves of the windowsills were always painted a wild red, while the wooden beams that interlaced the black brick were painted matte black. He obviously liked the sharp contrast of these colours, which somehow blended perfectly among the acute angles of the slated roof. I wonder whatever became of his horse. Now all as I can see is the bushy heads of the fir trees that once surrounded his house. They've grown tall over the years, tall enough for the squawking motor of crows to set up on. It is still a beautiful spring day. In the sky, fluffy white clouds, bullied by the winds, pass over our roof on their endless voyage. Clouds are aimless wanderers, the last untamed landmarks of nature. I suppose with the ozone depletion, they too are now under threat. And that's what the path looks like in the now of 2003. At first glance, a very ordinary, hardly stimulating view of urban development. But to my mind's eye, every step marks an integrant of my youth and traces of my father, all 50 of them. Thank you. I enjoyed that. I'm sorry I don't read so well. I am doing my best. The next short I'm going to read you is 2 million for a single smile. Actually, true story, I just made it poetic. During the hyperinflation in Yugoslavia, everybody was desperate for money, so the police were pulling everybody in for speeding. And because the currency was devaluating to such an extent, I ended up with this fine. So here we go. The car responded to my foot like a policeman's boot to a football hooligan's ass. Holy rabbit droppings, said my interpreter Pedro, his face creasing with distaste as the hair rose on the back of his neck like an outraged bull terrier. I had just negotiated the crest of a rather stubborn hill, exiting the town of Malizornik, only to have my progress halted by a policeman, arms extended and rotating like a windmill in a storm. "Oh, pull in, Mr. Morris," Pedro pointed to a specific spot, as if it were a cow spotting a good grazing. Far too many things were happening at once. I was standing on the brakes, halting my own progress. The robust policeman had a lollipop in his hand, not unlike the ones they use at airports to guide planes to parking. But amidst this confusion, I was happy with my interpreter. Finally, I had taught him to restrain him from that distasteful word shit in every sentence. You see, he watched too many American movies. The problems I had convincing him not to use that particular word, well, you just could not believe. "Pedro, do you want sugar?" "Shit, Mr. Morris, there is no sugar." "Pedro, what time is it?" "Shit, it's nearly 4. "Pedro, we have to go to Belgrade." "Shit, Mr. Morris, do we have to go?" "Pedro, where are you going?" "Shit, Mr. Morris." I knew from the look on the policeman's face that he harboured some grievance with life and probably never knew his father. I dropped my window, but not before telling Padraig to pretend that he could only speak English. Holy rabbit droppings, Mr. Morris. Isn't that dishonest? Perfect, Padraig. Keep it up. I gave him a wink and turned with a professional smile to disarm the approaching policeman. How's it going, Superintendent? I said loud enough so his cronies operating the radar equipment could hear of his sudden promotion. "'Tis a grand day," I said. The River Drina crawled his path like a lazy snake not 50 metres away on my left. Although his bulk in front of the window blocked this view, I knew that on the far bank the cattle grazed on fervent green Bosnian grass. As he started to speak, I wished I was with him. His tone was malicious and crisp, and he let off a barrage of Serbian at me. I looked dumbly at him and then at Padraig. "He said you were doing 63 in a 50-mile zone, Mr. Morris. You'll have to pay a 2 million dinar speeding fine." Padraig offered with a fidget of someone dancing in water lilies in a crocodile pond. Holy merciful Mother of Sweet Divine Jesus. We're talking about phone numbers, not money. The blood drained from my face and I turned furiously on Padraig. "You bloody fool, Padraig. I said not to speak Serbian." "I didn't," he protested. "I'm speaking English." "Idiot, shut up. Do you want me to get me arrested?" I turned again to face the policeman. Somewhat deep inside I hoped he might have vanished, melted in the sun, or even found some compassion. His shadow was still assaulting my presence. I knew I had a problem, but a wandering Irishman doesn't wilt easily to authority. My brain engaged. I pointed at the array of humanitarian emblems plastered on the car, but the emblem of the crescent sent his Christian eyebrows into a dollar, and I knew all hope was lost. A final spark of inspiration touched me like a ray of sunlight ricocheting off a fallen mirror. "Padraig, tell this moron that I'll give him 1 million dinar, and I don't need a receipt." Padraig looked at both of us as if he was seeing us for the first time. "You don't do that, Morris. Not in Serbia," he answered meekly. "Padraig, just do as I'm telling you. Will you, please?" With some hesitance he broke into speech and continued until the policeman recoiled like a bungee jumper at the end of his limits. "What?" screamed the policeman into my face. "You can't even buy a bottle of beer for 2 million dinar. Anyway, it's nothing to you. You're a foreigner. You've plenty of money." My word, he was absolutely furious and spoke perfect English. I was routing in my pocket for my wallet to pay him, but his fury overheated again. "What do you think this is, a market?" He was now roaring like a Scottish Highlander, doing a sprint through a thistle patch. I thought to close my window now, because I felt insulted, and I threw 2 million in his shovel of a hand. "I want a receipt," I demanded. He wedged the already written receipt into my hand with tremendous force and an evil look. I knew he would have preferred to stick it up my arse, and wondered what Padraig would have said to that. "Holy rabbit droppings, Mr. Morris, he stuck it up your ass." I drove off, the dark clouds of temper already starting to disperse. That was actually a true story. It was very, very funny. But you know, life. Life is a collection of good memories, and we can forget about the bad ones. You must remember to be happy. It's your right to be happy. And you're happy by just accepting where you are, what you are, and what's happening around you. And being nice to people. No need to be mean to anybody. Okay, hey, thank you for visiting me. And remember, please help me out. Buy a hard copy from www.maurice.ie, or just come in and check the webpage out. You don't have to buy. I have excerpts of all my books on the webpage which you can read if you want. Again, thank you. Bye.